Do you think that Jose Aldo will re-sign with the UFC? Could he become a contender once again? Or will he test the waters in the sport of boxing? Only time will tell, but we're going to go through it here tonight in this UFC 301 Aftermath show. We got a lot to discuss. We'll also go through some things to do with the Alejandro Pantoja versus Erceg, Steve Erceg fight. Was it the right decision? We'll also talk about what's next in that flyweight division as a whole, and how far will Michel Pereira go at middleweight. So there's lots to get through. Hello and welcome. I'm JK. This is Against the Fence, the one-stop shop, all things UFC. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit a like on the video and hit that subscribe button as well, because fan opinions matter most. Man, was it a bit of a lackluster main card or event as a whole at the weekend? In a lot of ways, people felt that this card could have been a lot better. We talked about the fact that Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill probably should have headlined this one, and it probably would have been a lot better. But, because can't be choosers. We had an absolute epic UFC 300, and we're going to have some epic pay-per-views to come in the next few months. So, I think time will kind of be the heal the wounds, should I say. I guess a few things. I didn't really catch the prelims. Did you guys catch the prelims? If you did, please let us know in the comment section, and what are you made of them? Personally, the cut on Jack Shaw's shin was a bit of an odd one. It's strange how they let things like the cut above the eyebrow of Gregory Rodriguez continue on, but then a cut to shin, they stop. I mean, all right, granted, it was gushing with blood and everything, but maybe perhaps Jack Shaw should have carried on. And unfortunately, he takes an L, and we'll have to climb the ranks once again. Joannis Brito will move forward now, and I'm interested to see what's next for him moving on down the line, because I think he's quite explosive and he's a good prospect for the division. But he's what is he, lost only once, I think, since joining the UFC. Urabai was pretty impressive as well. He got a decision win against Elvis Brenner, and Drakkar Klose defeating Joaquim Silva by decision. Just a few mentions, of course. Although that Mauricio Ruffy TKO against Jamie Malarkey was pretty impressive as well. He was a bit of a talking point this past weekend. Smash a like on the video, guys, if you've not done so already. Let's recap then some of the events from the main card then. Let's head on through to here. Wrong one. That one there. We're kicking off things. We had Caio Borralho defeating Paul Craig via knockout round 2. Your boy picked it. And Caio Borralho earns his first knockout win since that fight he had on Dana White Contender Series. He kind of reminded us once again that he's not just a wrestler, and that he has got hands as well. And, in this fight previous, I can't remember who it was against now. I did do tape on it last week. He remains standing the whole time, and wanted to showcase more of his striking skills, and he did exactly that against Paul Craig. He felt that it was an area he could exploit. He didn't really want to touch the ground with Paul Craig, because of course Craig's just known to be so dangerous off of his back, and he's able to pull out triangle chokes from out of nowhere. But yeah, Caio Borralho continues to impress now. That's how many in a row? Like, since forever? Like, I don't know. How many fight win streak? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Actually, oh yeah. Oh, he's only... So he lost his second fight as a pro. That's mad. Okay, mad time for him at the moment. He's going to move on. I can't wait to see him back in the octagon. He was size 1 to watch at one point in the past. But what's next for him? I would probably give Jack Hermansson the nod for him next in the rankings. Let's have a look at the rankings whilst we're talking about it. Have a look. There's a bit, few updates, of course. We've got Roman Dolidze's dropping down a spot. 2 spots, sorry. Jack Hermansson and Hamzat Chimaev have moved up. And we've got Anthony Hernandez has moved down too to make way for Michel Pereira, who we'll be talking about in just a sec. But I think Jack Hermansson's a good fight for Borralho. When you look at Hermansson's coming off a win against Joe Pyfer, though, you could argue that Jack Hermansson's due someone ranked higher. Because he's just defended his ranking against Joe Pyfer. But, when you look at the guys, some of them he's already fought. I mean, I guess he could, and some of them he's already booked, already fought. He could very well fight Marvin Vettori. I think it's possible if Marvin Vettori was to get healthy, because who knows when he's going to be coming back. But I guess if not, then Hermansson's the next step for him, who can wrestle as well. Quite strong for the division too. Very light on his feet. Going to be a difficult person to tag, I think, during the exchanges. So, yeah, I think that's a fight. That's a good test for both guys, That's my 2 cents on that. As for Paul Craig, though, little bit of tough times, though. He's kind of been seems to be a bit of a stepping stone at the moment, really. Only 1 win in his last 5, and I think he needs to return to light heavyweight. He's tested himself at middleweight. I think he got 1 win and just 2 losses, and maybe that weight cut is a little bit too much for him. I've got 2 options for Paul Craig, 1 at middleweight, 1 at light heavyweight. The option, I think I've mentioned this before, would be Bo Nickel at middleweight, and that's purely because the UFC will want to test Bo Nickel, and they'll want to give him somebody who's on a bit of a downhill at the moment, because that's how the UFC like to operate. They'll use Bo Nickel to hype him up. They want to give him fights that he could potentially win against guys who have got a bit of experience. But the problem is with that option is, like I said before, if you give Bo Nickel someone like Paul Craig and Bo Nickel passes the test, then that's it. You're in the rankings now. It's not going to get any easier than that. I mean, I'm not to say that Bo Nickel can't defeat any of these guys in that bottom half of that echelon. I think there's a lot of guys that he can beat. Maybe he can beat a Kyle Borralho. Maybe he can beat a Roman Dolidze or a Jack Hermansson, Nassourdine Imavov. But it's going to be those type of fights. You could argue with me a little bit and go, but JK, don't you think that they'll want to give Bo Nickel a striker again? Possibly. Cody Brundage had some wrestling skills in his locker. All right, okay, not on the same level of Bo Nickel, but, I think testing him against somebody that he can also strike with is going to be pretty key, I think, in terms of developing Bo Nickel as a mixed martial arts fighter. Hello, Mr. Eason. How are we? How's the return back from football? But yeah, that would be my option for Paul Craig at middleweight. It would be Bo Nickel. At light heavyweight, though, I feel like the winner of Dustin Jacoby and Dominic Reyes could be a good one for Paul Craig. Dustin Jacoby's a bit of a veteran in the game, more of a striker. Dominic Reyes is falling on hard times. He's got 4-fight losing skid, and we've not seen him since 2022. So I think it would be a good fight for both guys should Reyes be victorious against Justin Jacoby. Personally, I think Jacoby might just edge Reyes on that one. I don't know. Maybe Reyes might have a bit of a power advantage against Jacoby. Jacoby, I think, might be a little bit more slicker in terms of a bit more technical than Reyes. So, I think that's my 2 cents on that fight. I think either of those, I think, would be a good fight for Paul Craig. Fingers crossed. Let's keep Paul Craig going, and let's give him some fights that could really get him back on the win column, perhaps. If not, then he really has got to start to question things. That fight between Jacoby and Reyes will be contested June 8th. So timing-wise, could very well work out well, depending, of course, on the outcome. And just Paul Craig maybe perhaps needs to take some time out as well. That's another option. So, yeah, lots to make of this Paul Craig scenario. But hopefully he comes back very well soon. Going on back then to the second fight of the main card, where Michel Pereira absolutely went through Ihor Pereira, and just kind of his performances just make you wonder, right? Why was he even depleting his body trying to make the welterweight limit? Like, you know, looks so much better, and you know, he keeps kind of getting better and better in there. We kind of want to see more and more of him now. And hopefully he can get another quick turnaround, perhaps. You know, how many fights has he had this year? Because I feel like there've been quite a few. And I think there's definitely room for one more. And I've got a really good one in just a sec. It was his second fight. Of course, his last fight against Michel Pereira was back in March. So he literally like 2 months ago or whatever. So yeah, get him back in there, I say. But before he does that, you know, before we do that, how far can he climb in this middleweight division is kind of the question I've been asking myself today. If we look at the rankings, then we'll go back to the middleweight division. And he slots in there nicely at number 13, just below Kai Bahalio. And yeah, you know, you could do Kai Bahalio versus Michel Pereira. Maybe it's an intriguing fight. But maybe you want to leave those two as kind of like potential guys to kind of push towards the top 10, maybe. So perhaps you don't want to pair them up just yet. Personally, I think that they should give him Roman Dolidze next, because he could step in there, because Roman Dolidze was slated to fight at UFC 302 next month. So maybe Dolidze would be willing to accept that fight, should Dolidze still want to be on the card, of course. Hopefully he does. Now, you're probably asking, like, why should Pereira receive a higher ranked opponent than Kai Bahalio, who is ranked above him at the moment? Well, I think the answer is pretty clear. Pereira is on a 3-fight finish streak at the moment, and whereas I think Kai Bahalio won his one prior, I think by decision, wasn't it? So, you know, and it was a bit of a lackluster fight. So that's the reason why I'd give Michel Pereira somebody ranked above. Excuse me. So, yeah, how far can Michel Pereira climb? So if you give him Dolidze, say he beats Dolidze, what's then next after that? Probably the loser of Jared Cannonier versus Nassourdine Imavov. I quite like his chances against either of them. I think it's going to be tough, though. I don't know. It's very hard to tell. I think maybe he can give Imavov a good run. Cannonier, I think, would be a little bit difficult on a technical level. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that fight kind of goes, I guess. But yeah, I can't see him reaching any further, unless perhaps you do someone like a Paulo Costa versus Michel Pereira down the line. Two absolute units in the division. Power punchers. Good, probably counter wrestling for each guy. But again, that depends on Paulo Costa. He's going to be fighting Sean Strickland next month at 302 as well. Which is kind of a bit of an odd fight for me. In a lot of ways, it makes sense because it's a fight that neither guy have had before. But Paulo Costa gets another shot at someone above him in the rankings. And he's on a 2-fight losing skid, something like that. So if he loses to Sean Strickland, I think Michel Pereira would be an ideal fight. We've got Ash chiming in saying, this guy is a beast at the moment. I wish this could be a voice note. Jack Hermanson. Yeah, no, I've got Jack Hermanson taking on Kai Bahalio. That would be my next pick. Yeah, so yeah, I can't see Pereira fighting Hermanson, but I mean, look, they could decide to do that, but that's not what I would go for personally. As for Ihor Pereira, who did step on short notice a little bit, falls short again. That's what, one win in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 wins in his last 5. Okay, not too bad. But yeah, a short notice fight nonetheless. I would give him someone like a fight night prelim. Makes a bit of sense there, I think, in my opinion. Unless he decides to go to light heavyweight. Unless he goes to light heavyweight, of course. So yeah, time will tell. They're my options for that one. Moving on then to the third fight of the main card, which saw Anthony Smith, the veteran himself, proving to us really that he's not finished yet by defeating a young, undefeated fighter in Vitor Petrino, who, I think a lot of people thought was going to win that fight, and making his case for a step in the rankings. But no, the door was shut on him. He looked very good on the feet, though, I must admit. He was cracking Smith at times during that fight. He shot him for the takedown and just kind of left his neck exposed, really. But I think he'll bounce back and return to the octagon probably sooner than Anthony Smith, in my opinion. But yeah, as for options-wise or even rankings-wise, go into it then. Have we got any changes? We've not really got any changes in this division, of course. It stays still for the meantime, but we'll give you this an opportunity for you guys to call out your shots, whether it be in the chats or the comments section, because personally I could see Anthony Smith fighting the winner of Alonzo Menafield versus Carlos Ulberg, which I think we may have mentioned during the watch long as well. Those two are squaring off May 11th, which is just around the corner. Alonzo Menafield in a number 11 there, just one spot below Anthony Smith. Of course, if Carlos Ulberg was to beat Alonzo Menafield, then he would take his spot. So, yeah, I think in terms of ranking wise, that fight kind of makes sense. Anthony Smith, can't see him fighting up at all, just because his performances haven't been great at all as of late. He done well to get the win against Petrino, must admit, but I think we need to see more. If in doubt, drop the gilly, says Ash. Yeah, to be honest, I did see, I think Dustin Poirier saying he was going to get a statue outside his house of him jumping the guillotine, which would be pretty cool to see, must admit. My other option for Anthony Smith would actually be an option which someone he's not fought before in this division. He's fought the who's who of this division. Would be someone like a Nikita Krylov, who, we've not seen in a while, but I think he's surely due to return to action pretty soon. I don't know if he's fighting over in Ukraine at the moment, so yeah, that's if not, we won't see him for quite some time. So he's due to be booked, unless he is to fight Rakic, which also could be an option for Krylov. So yeah, those are my options for Anthony Smith then. As for Vitor Petrino, one big fight that we mentioned during the watch along, which I think needs to kind of happen, would be an Ion Cutelaba. Both guys are absolute units. Cutelaba is an absolute monster and, just kind of tries to run through people the best he can. I think he's a little bit undersized for light heavyweight, in my opinion. I've been kind of calling for him to make the drop to middleweight and test the waters there, but it's just not really happened. And he's only one win in his last 5 fights, and he just needs to get a win back. And I think someone who's fairly new, like Petrino, who's only got 1 loss, would be a good fight for him. So fight night main card, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's my option for him. Let's move on to the co-main event then. Jose Aldo making his return. Now we got some big questions hanging our heads at the moment in regards to Jose Aldo, because do we see him return to the UFC octagon? Or will he perhaps try his hand at boxing once again? He kind of schooled the prospect this past weekend against Jonathan Martinez. One thing that's kind of playing into our minds coming into this week's weekend was, did the UFC set him up to fail with it being his last fight on his contract? Because the UFC are notorious for doing this before. If they know that somebody wants to move out of the organization and go elsewhere, and they've got one fight left on their contract, they will give that person the worst matchup possible that they can give him. It was going to happen with Nate Diaz. They knew that Nate Diaz was going to go to boxing. They decided to give him out Khamzat Chimaev originally. With Francis Ngannou, they gave him, the next challenger in Cyril Gane, who I think a lot of people, including the UFC, felt that Gane was going to run through Ngannou, but they got that one wrong. And they got the Nate Diaz one wrong as well in a lot of ways, because the fight didn't materialize and they were forced to give Nate Tony Ferguson. So it's a power move from the UFC to make that fighter look bad when they go into another organization, and they're notorious for doing it. So it backfired on them, and I knew it was going to backfire on them, because when you do your research and you look at the tape, and you realise that Aldo is so good at checking leg kicks. And what's Martinez's best weapon? It is those leg kicks, because they were devastating against Adrian Yanez. Completely shut him down. But it wasn't going to work against Aldo. Aldo's going to continue coming forward, get into boxing range, put combinations together, and even mix in his kicks as well. And he showed that in that fight. Can't wait to see him again. I do hope that he sticks with the UFC. I've got some boxing options and I've got some MMA options for him. And I guess the question also is, coming into this, are the UFC already aware of his intentions with the fact that they gave him Martinez and he didn't even get a performance bonus either? How wild was that? He was the talk of the night, and they didn't give him a performance bonus. It says a lot. To be honest, I'm quite actually surprised they put him in the rankings. As we can see here, they actually put him in. Because I said on this past weekend, I didn't think they were going to put him in. But they've put him in here at number 8. I think it's a fair shout. But if he was to go over to boxing, then who could he fight? Maybe a Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition contest? It's possible. Who knows? Could it be maybe an older Manny Pacquiao? Because, look, these boxing fights against MMA guys seem to be a bit of a hot thing that gets the eyeballs into boxing. But is Jose Aldo a big enough name worldwide for these people to do a fight with? That's kind of my question, really. We know everything about Jose Aldo. I guess Jose Aldo, to a lot of people, especially outside of MMA, is known for the guy who got knocked out by Conor McGregor in 13 seconds. So in boxing stances, is it a tough sell to pair someone up with Aldo? Because Aldo beat a 27-year-old in boxing last time out, and looked impressive apparently. I didn't see it. But if you're Jose Aldo, do you still want to continue having those kind of fights, perhaps? I don't know. Maybe MMA would be your better option. Now, I'm going to be breaking down one option that I've got for MMA. And it's one we did discuss briefly on the weekend, which I think is the best option. Great question, says Sai. Brup. Ash says Aldo versus Cruz or Cejudo. Sai reckons he's going to leave. Ash says, but I still wouldn't be annoyed if Aldo retired, as what a setting. Yeah, I know, and I agree. You were saying that at the weekend, and yeah, it would have been ideal, but I think he should have just done it there and then in the cage, really, instead of, I guess his heart wasn't in it at the time, but who knows. As for MMA options now, I've got Henry Cejudo. I think is the best option for him. As you can see, Henry Cejudo in at number 5, 2-loss skid at the moment. It'd be 2 former champions battling it out. Cejudo's had his chance and fell short, crack at the belt and being the next man in line as well. It's probably the best fight for Aldo at the moment when you look at the rankings there, because he's not going to fight for the belt straight away. But Cejudo, I think, in my opinion, would probably rather fight Peter Yan in at number 3 because it's a step up for him. And I think Cejudo's just going to dig his heels in and constantly try and get fights that are above him in the rankings, similar to what like Paulo Costa's doing in the middleweight division. But if we break it down then, guys, here we go. This little scene here. Bit of a tale of the tape for Cejudo versus Aldo. As you can see, Aldo, the more experienced guy, 32-8, 17 knockouts, which is pretty impressive to Cejudo's 8. He's got 1 submission on his resume. Some key areas then to break things down. You've got Cejudo's level changes are going to be a problem for Aldo, and of course his wrestling, having been an Olympic gold medalist. You've got Cejudo's cardio, I think, would best Aldo across 5 rounds. If they make it maybe a fight night 5-rounder, you'd probably favour Cejudo overall, perhaps, to go to a decision if it's 5 rounds. In a 3-round, little bit of a struggle, of course. We've seen Cejudo slow down in his last 2 fights after the first round. We see Aldo do the same as well, but I do kind of edge it to the wrestler, I'm afraid, in this, because the other option would be, of course, cardio, would be, of course, the mental edge. I think that Cejudo's somebody who can dig deep and kind of really push himself in those later rounds, where, of course, in the past with Aldo, we've not really seen that, especially with fights against the likes of Max Holloway and that at featherweight. Now, okay, granted, you could just say, well, Aldo kind of checked out a little bit during that period in his career and was kind of, bothered by the whole thing that happened with Conor McGregor and wasn't training as hard and things like that. But, for those reasons, I think we've got to give the mental edge to Henry Cejudo. And of course, Cejudo is going to be a problem with his distance management. He's got a very wide stance. He's been really improving his striking. He's got great use of that distance. And I think he's that combined with his level changes is going to cause Aldo some problems. On the other hand, for Aldo, though, is going to be his explosiveness, ties in with his leg kicks, of course, and just his overall shot selection, which is in there as well. I think, his ability to target the body and come up top as well in such short bursts will cause Cejudo problems in those close exchanges. His takedown defense is a big key one in there. I should have highlighted it because Merab Dvalishvili really struggled to get Aldo down and is still, Aldo's still the one person that Merab's not been able to take down in his UFC career. So do you think Henry Cejudo can really is the question? You'd imagine that Cejudo can do it against the fence. But personally, I think that Cejudo's got a bit more technique in his locker. Because he is a decorated gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, he's going to have more techniques under his belt. And I think those techniques could very well cause Aldo some different problems against the fence there. So Aldo's got to obviously remain in the center for as much as possible during that potential fight. And of course, the last thing for Aldo is his world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which a lot of MMA fans haven't really seen much of. He's won world championships in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The reason we don't see it in his MMA game is purely because he is so explosive, and with that explosiveness, it's really taxing on your cardio, and grappling in itself is just taxing his cardio, full stop. So I don't think Aldo can be explosive with his striking and utilize much wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in his fights. He kind of sticks to the striking elements. So, but I gotta add it in there though, because it is a bit of a factor of a what if Cejudo was able to get Aldo down. Can Aldo be threatening off his back? Because I believe that he can and cause Cejudo problems in that area. But let's take us back then to the rankings. That's a little bit of a breakdown for you guys, because I think that fight makes the most sense next for Jose Aldo in MMA. Quick chat there. Oh, George Merry's in the house. Yes, George Merry. Gold evening, men. I mean, it's a good evening, men. I hope you're well. You feel sexed and lastly, smash the like button for my hour and a half journey home. Oh man, we got to time your finishing work better with these videos, haven't we, mate? Good to see you in the chats. Hope you enjoyed that little breakdown in there. Oh, new graphics, says Ash. Yeah, you know, we work hard over here. But as for Jonathan Martinez, then we can't ignore Jonathan Martinez. My only option for him would be Victor Henry. Let's make this fight happen. Victor Henry is, of course, now 24 wins and 6 losses, coming off of that impressive TKO win against Ronnie Yahya, which was the week prior to this past weekend's event. So timing-wise, it makes sense. It's a step up for Victor Henry. It gives him another shot at the rankings, because I think he came in his debut short notice and fought Rafael Sunsao, I think, was ranked at the time quite a while ago. And, you know, Henry's been impressive. We've had him on the channel, so I spoke to him before. So I think he deserves that crack there, because other than that, you've got Pedro Munoz, who's coming off a loss to Kyler Phillips. Jonathan Martinez and Munoz have not fought before, so they could very well get paired up as well. But personally, I'll put Victor and Henry in there. It's not out of bias, you see, really. Like, I just think that Victor Henry's due a step now, and it looks like that Jonathan Martinez is the best option, really. Mario Bautista's 6-fight win streak in at 13. He deserves to be fighting up after beating Ricky Simone. Kyler Phillips, of course, deserves to fight up, because he's on a 3-fight win streak as well. Dominic Cruz, we still don't know what's going to happen with him. I think Dominic Cruz, if you're Cruz, you should be calling for a Jose Aldo super fight now, because that is your best chance at even moving up in the rankings if you still want to compete. Who knows when Dominic Cruz will come back? I feel like we talk about Cruz quite a bit in these Aftermath shows, and no fights get booked for him. George says, the self-employed don't have that makes sense, brother. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a shame. But glad you're here, though, of course. And, of course, you know, make sure you catch up on things later on once you're home. Hello, Breezy. Sorry I'm late. No worries, brother. Good to see you back in the house as always. Of course, what do you think is going to be next for Jose Aldo? Do you think he's going to stay with the UFC or move on to boxing? So far, we've got 67% of you saying yes to staying in the UFC. So, yeah, I hope he does as well. So, yeah, that pretty much concludes things for our co-main event. In the bantamweight division, smash a like on the video if you've not done so already, and hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Get in the comment section. Let's go on then to the final fight of the night, the main event, the flyweight contest between Alejandro Pantoja and Steve Erceg. Now, Pantoja successfully defended the belt for the second time. He is one more defense away from tying the record for second most defenses in the division. Of course, Demetrius Johnson currently holds the record for most, and Pantoja is tied with Davison Figueiredo on defenses. So, yeah, I mean, arguably, probably, you know, one of the best flyweights to do it. He's beaten a lot of these guys in the division already. He did enough to secure the victory against Steve Erceg. I felt that it could have been 2-2 heading into the 5th round. The second round was probably the most closest. We felt that Erceg needed to secure the 5th round in order to make it perhaps a split decision, because we felt that maybe the majority of the judges did score it for him for that second round, but it could have gone to Pantoja. So, you know, he didn't. and we comfortably felt that Pantoja won that fight, even though we did pick him. We try not to be biased, of course. We try not to. This is what happens when you miss a Monday meeting, says Breezy. Yeah, mate. It's all happening. I think he does. However, I couldn't be shocked if he went to some sort of influencer boxing. Go get the bag, man. So that's his thoughts on Jose Aldo. Excellent. Erceg rematch, co-main 305, says George Murray. Wow. How did you score the fight? How did you score it, guys? In the chats and in the comment section. I felt it was 3-2 to Pantoja. But Erceg, I think, the main talking point for him then now is kind of how well he performed against the champion, I think he'll grow from this performance. I definitely felt that he was going to make this a competitive fight. Even though we've not seen much of him in the UFC, I didn't think that Pantoja was going to go in there and absolutely dog walk him. I did predict it as a bit of a safe prediction, but I did feel that Erceg, could catch Pantoja in some of the exchanges. I think he did well in the grappling elements as the fighter drew late, which was quite surprising. But yeah, like I said, he's going to grow from this. Some good options for him. I'll start with Erceg then. It's got to be Matheus Nicolau, in my opinion. Hopefully the timing makes sense, because of course Nicolau did get knocked out by Alex Perez not too long ago. So, fingers crossed that fight could very well marry up. If we look at the rankings now, as you can see, Steve Erceg moves one spot up and overtakes Tim Elliott. Matheus Nicolau is in at number 8 there. So, I like I've said this past weekend, I feel that Erceg deserved to still fight up. This, because of his performance was so good against Pantoja. As for Pantoja, then his next title defense, I think, will be against Amir Albazi, who's currently 17-1 as a professional. Hopefully he's 100% fit. I'm not really too sure where he's been at recently. I think he's been holding out, let's be honest, for the right moment to fight Pantoja. It just didn't really marry up for him this past weekend. He did call Pantoja out, though, following this weekend. So hopefully that's the fight that's going to get next made. In terms of prediction-wise, I got to go with Pantoja, even though he doesn't make things look easy, does he? He's always in an absolute scrap, and there's always back and forths in his fights. It's not complete domination, and I predict the same outcome against Albazi. I think he's going to be quicker on the feet, and it'd be interesting to see what Albazi's like in the scrambles with Pantoja as well. So, interesting thoughts going forward for that. Maybe we get it on towards the back end of the year. Who knows? We'll see. Fingers crossed, because that's how many fights is out Pantoja had this year? Just the one. So yeah, he's due to fight again. 2023 he fought twice. 2022 he fought once. 2021 he fought twice. So yeah, he's usually a twice a year kind of guy. So I think we'll see him towards the end of the year. As for Erceg, I'm not really quite sure yet. We'll hopefully see soon. Breezy says, Ash, sir, jog and point. Are you jogging right now? I don't know what he's on about there. But yeah, awesome stuff, guys. Amazing comments as usual. Glad to see you all back into the comments section there. And that basically concludes our UFC 301 Aftermath show. So make sure you get any questions in that you want to do so, whether it be in the chat section or in the comment section. And hit that like on the video if you've not done so already. And hit the notifications bell as well, because you got to stay up to date with everything that's coming your way. You have no idea what's next in store. There could be some surprises on the way. Who knows? There's going to be lots coming your way. So make sure we share these moments together. This weekend, we have another fight night coming up. And the headliner will be in the heavyweight division as Derek Lewis returns to 5-round main events against Nascimento. Do we think it's going to be another walk-off home run knockout for Derek Lewis? I got a feeling it probably will be, but the card is looking pretty good, I must admit. We've got the Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to be fighting Rubias de Spain. I think that is the one fight that is you must see. It's must-see entertainment, that one. Someone's going out. Rubias de Spain is, 5-0 at the moment, all finishes, all in the first round. Waldo Acosta, bit more experience, new to the UFC, but I don't think has lost a fight yet. You've also got Alex Caceres versus Sean Woodson, featherweight division. Carlos Diego Ferreira returns against Mateus Rebecki. Alonzo Menifil versus Carlos Olberg, which we mentioned earlier. And we've got Joaquin Buckley versus Nura Sultan. Ruzabayev, he's making a drop down to welterweight, so that's going to be quite intriguing as well. So make sure you got the notifications bell on our channel and you join us for another watch along this weekend. I believe it's going to be 12 a.m. here in the UK. You guys do the maths in terms of timing wise for you guys in the US. I'm sure you're all on top of it because you're all hardcore fans anyways, aren't we? Aren't you all? All right, amazing stuff. Thanks a lot for joining in, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.